Hey guys, this is Matt with the Fast Center, and I'm going to start doing some instructional videos and going over some of the things that I think that are important with pitching and the things that I go over with my clients and the kids that come in and see me on a day-to-day. Today, we're going to keep it really simple. We're going to talk about fastballs. And before we start getting into the grips and the movement and that sort of thing, the first thing that I think is important and that most pitching coaches I think feel that's important is you want to be throwing your pitches and fastballs in particular on a downhill plane. If you don't know what downhill means, is from your release point, you want the ball coming in from your hand to the catcher's mitt, and obviously this is going to be a little more drastic, but you want it coming downhill from your release point to the bottom of the zone, as opposed to sinking your shoulders, sinking your arm slot, and having the ball come in flat and living around the belt. Now, there's a few different ways as far as your mechanical techniques we can get this done. Staying tall, staying through the zone, staying through your target, all that kind of thing. But for the most part, now we'll get into all that kind of stuff later. But for the most part, all the stuff that we're throwing here, unless you're elevating a fastball 0-2 or something like that, the rest of the time you want to be living around the knees. You're going to hear me say that a whole lot in all of my pitching videos and the way I do things. I always want the ball challenged at the bottom of the zone. I want you to challenge the bottom of the zone and pitch to contact. I'm not really a big guy on throwing the ball outer third, outer black, inner third, inner black, in, out, that sort of thing. I don't look at the plate as much left or right as I look at the strike zone up and down. I always, with my kids, I try to tell them to cut whatever you think the zone is, cut the thing in half and never throw anything in that upper half, ever. Always throw the thing at the bottom of the zone. Down there, your margin of error is much, much bigger. If you're up around the belt or mid-thigh, you've got to be working almost black to black, as opposed to at the bottom of the zone, you've pretty much got that whole bottom to work with, and you don't have to worry so much about having to get out front and do this, do that, and pinpoint your pitches as much down there. Your margin of error is much bigger. In the bottom of the zone, you throw that thing right down the heart of the plate, at the knees, at the bottom, at all levels. It's a tough pitch to hit. It's a tough pitch to do much with. It's definitely a tough pitch to elevate. So that's one of the things and one of the mindsets that you need to have whenever you're pitching, whenever you're throwing all these pitches that we're going to go into. I'll go into in this video. The first fastball we'll go into is the four-seam fastball. This pitch is the most commonly thrown pitch in baseball at any level. This is going to be the pitch that you see thrown, I would say, the most often, probably by a pretty big margin. So first of all, before we even look at the baseball, look at how your hand works. Obviously, you're going to hear this a lot with me too. You want to keep it simple and work with how your body is. Work with how your body works and keep it comfortable. And there's a way you can do this with the four seam. So obviously, we're going to be using our pointer finger, middle finger, and thumb. And you can see how your middle finger will jet out and be a little bit longer than your pointer finger. Now, there is the way the baseball is seamed and the way it works. If you look here, this would be the incorrect way to throw it. If you look on the seam right here, it'll jet out and then back in. And if you look, you lay your fingers across that, you've got one finger working with the seam, and this one's working on the flat of the baseball, and that's not necessarily how we want to have it. We always want to be using the seams. They're there for a reason, and we want to take advantage of that. You're going to hear me say that a lot as well. Us as pitchers, we don't have the luxury of taking, fielding a ground ball or a fly ball, taking a crow hop or a shuffle, and then making a play. We've got to gain and get all of our momentum from a little piece of rubber in the dirt. You know what I mean? We can't do anything else. That's where we got to get it all from. So we've got to take advantage of every little thing and all the things that we possibly can. And this is one of the things that I'm talking about. So if you see what I'm talking about there, how we're not really using the seams. Now, if we turn the baseball 1/4 turn, here, you can see where the seam will jet out and then back in. We can lay our pointer finger there, and again, our middle finger will work right with the baseball and right with the seam. Therefore, using the seams and use them to pull down on, and also being able to control the baseball a little bit more there. So, and that would be your four-seam grip, and that's very, very, very general, and that's very, very, very typical of everybody's four seam. That's what you're going to see. You generally don't see a whole lot of guys doing it this way. This will be the grip you see most often. Now, we'll get into the two seam fastball now. The two seam of the sinker, pretty much the same thing. Now there's different variations. There's different ways to do it. Little variations, but the most general grip that you'll see would be right here. You'll see the horseshoe, and then the mouth of both of them where they open up. And what you would do is middle finger and pointer finger once again are going to lay inside both of those seams with your thumb underneath. Now again, with your and going back to the four seam or any grip, if your hands are smaller and that sort of thing, you'll see younger kids, they'll be spread out or even using three fingers or whatever the case may be. Now, if you have more pressure spread out over the baseball, the less rotation and the less velocity. Now, the more you can center the baseball up, the more rotation you'll have, the more late movement, the more velocity. So, as your hands get bigger and that sort of thing, your fingers will start to touch, and they'll start to be able to really take advantage of centering the baseball up like this. This is the pitch that I threw most often. I threw it probably, I would imagine, throughout my career. I would say after I got out of high school, whenever I was in high school, I was a four-seam guy, and then I got up to where the level of play was a little bit more, and I switched to a two-seam because I started to see the difference in 2-0 counts, 3-1 counts, 1-0 counts, to where guys in the box were much more talented, and whenever they get into those kind of counts, they're dead red fastball, and if you throw it in there flat and straight, then you're going to be in trouble. And this is a pitch that I always felt comfortable if I did get behind. If I was throwing, if it's a three-hole guy, I throw a breaking ball first pitch, try to get me over. I throw it low out of the zone. I get behind 1-0. He knows it. I know it. We're throwing a fastball. I'm coming at him, trying to get back even in the count. If I throw that two-seam in there, it's got that late run, that late sink. I always felt comfortable throwing that thing in there, letting him take that big cut, and maybe getting in on his hands or getting underneath his bat, him hitting a 5-6 hopper to the shortstop, getting him out right then and there. That's one thing that I'm really big on as well, is pitching to contact and getting the guys out 3-4 pitches at most. That prolongs the innings pitched. Get your pitch count down, keeps your defense behind you, and all of that kind of stuff. So the two-seam is a good way to do that. Get a lot of ground balls and keep the game going and keep your defense rolling as well. So, and to get to the movement of this pitch, for you righties, the two-seam will end up running into a righty to your arm side, and maybe it'll have a little sink as well. It won't be rolling flat, and it shouldn't run straight and flat. It should change planes a little bit, some more than others. The straight sinker ballers, they can get a lot of this, the Brennan Webbs and the Dan Herons and that sort of thing in the big leagues that rely on their sinkers, and they can just throw it. Everybody knows it's coming. Nobody can elevate it. Nobody can do anything to it. Those are the guys that have learned how to manipulate it and get a lot of depth out of it in the zone. But it'll run to your arm size. Now, obviously, lefties, it's going to do the opposite. If you're left-handed, it's going to run away from a righty into a lefty. Now, this is a pitch, if you're trying to locate it, to me, I always grab that thing, unless I was trying to do something if I was ahead, depending on the count, depending on the sequence. But for the most part, throw that thing on the plate, throw it down the heart of the plate, let it do its thing, let it run, let it take off and sink, let them take a big hack and get themselves out. Now, that's another thing that I really believe in. Pitchers, you already have the advantage. For one thing, baseball's in your hand. You control the game. And further than that, a 300 hitter, they're in the Hall of Fame. And they're getting themselves out 7 out of 10 times. So you're up there. You need to go up there and go at them. They'll get themselves out with quality pitches at the bottom of the zone. It'll happen a lot. Get the ball at the bottom of the zone. They'll get themselves out. So that's the two-seam, and like I said, that's the most important pitch to me. I feel like it's the best pitch in baseball. Now, the last season that I played in pro ball, I had a guy that I was in the bullpen with. He was a lefty guy, didn't throw real hard, and he taught me a cutter. We kind of messed with it one off season. I messed with it before I met this guy. I was messing with it a little bit. I didn't really implement it in my sequences or any in the games during that season prior to when I met this guy. But talked to him a little bit in spring training, and we started working on it, and I started messing around with the grips and pressure points, and I figured out and I found one that worked for me. I started using it a lot. I used it as an out pitch. I learned how to get it to, break. I learned how to get it to cut. I learned how to get, different action and that sort of thing with different speeds. I used it for a lot of different reasons, and it turned out to be a great pitch for me, and I had one of the best seasons of my life. Now, again, a cutter, the action on it or the movement's going to be pretty much, the mirror effect of a two-seam. Maybe a little bit different, but for a righty, it's going to move to your glove side, so away from a right-handed batter, a lot like a slider would. Just the action's not going to be as drastic, and it's not going to be as slow. You shouldn't lose very much velocity on a cut fastball or the two-seam, for that matter, from your four-seam. Some people do, some people don't. Like me, I never lost much on my two-seam. My four-seam was around 91, 92. The two-seam would be 89, 91, and then my cutter, I would lose a little bit on my cutter, not too much. I'd be, 88, 89, somewhere in there on the cut fastball. And again, you're using this pitch to miss the middle of the bat. You're trying to get off the end of the bat or come into lefties, and that was the reason that I wanted to use it. I had a tough time being I had a low three-quarter arm slot. So I had a little bit of a problem. I had no problem with righties, had a hard slider, had no problem with right-handers, but I didn't have anything to get lefties off the plate. It was really hard for me to throw, that two-seam, that S-turn, or that backdoor two-seam in there on their hands and be productive with that pitch. So I needed something to get lefties off the plate. So this was the pitch that I used to do that, and pretty much it's just like my two-seam. I'd throw it right down the heart of the plate, let it take off, let it cut in underneath the lefty's hands, and let them do their thing, let them get themselves out with a little chopper to the second baseman or first baseman, or most of the time, break a bat, comes right back at me, simple play. Now again, there's a lot of different variations on this grip as well. A lot of it's pressure points and a lot of it's seam placement and that sort of thing. But the way I threw it and the way the guy that taught me how to throw it was, this would be my four-seam fastball here. All I did was I'd pull the baseball out of my hand a little bit here, and I'd be working just on the flat part of the ball with no seam. And then I'd pull the baseball out and off-center it just a little bit and just a tick to where, as you can see here, to where my offset, I guess the baseball would be sticking out toward first base and toward the left side, and I'd be off-centered, and I'd kind of move the center of the baseball to the right or toward the third base side. Now, whenever you're throwing the baseball, and you do this naturally, and everybody does, you don't even know you're doing it, you'll square the baseball up, and you'll center your pressure. So you'll have 50 here and 50 here. Now, all I did on mine, I tried to take a little bit off my pointer finger and try to take whatever I took off my pointer, I tried to add to my middle finger. And basically all that does, the look and the rotation coming in is not enough for a hitter to tell most of the time. If it's a cutter or if it's a four-seam, it's very, very, very similar. But again, you throw that thing on the middle of the plate, you see a hitter come up there, he takes a big hack at it, and as he's committed his hands, it's too late. He's already committed to swing. Comes down, middle of the bat, boom, jets in on his hands. The ball's not going anywhere. And basically, again, we'll just show that one more time right there. And I'm just adding right here. Now, again, your four-seam would be this rotation coming in. And basically the cutter, whenever I threw it, you have it. It basically hangs onto your middle finger just a little bit longer. It would come out somewhere in here. And just barely, barely offset the rotation to where once it gets about, 3, 4 to 6 feet in front of the plate, boom, jets into their hands. They're not going to do anything with it. Now, again, that's pretty much it for tonight. That's going to be this video, the end of it, about the fastball stuff. Again, check us out on Facebook and check us out on our website, www.thefastcenter.com. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.